Saira Sabzaali is a transpersonal psychotherapist who works with people who want to incorporate their cultural values and spiritual beliefs into therapy. Her private practice is based near Shuswap Lake in British Columbia, Canada. Outside of her work as a therapist and mental health educator, Dr. Saira teaches in the counseling program at Stenberg College here in Surrey, British Columbia. She also has a podcast with her husband called Sabzi Life that explores conscious living while parenting. And Dr. Saira is an avid volunteer and currently sits on the board of the Canadian Mental Health Association. Dr. Saira has spoke on 2 TEDx stages and offers mental health education seminars and workshops with a special interest in supporting children and their caregivers, understanding trauma and addiction, and managing burnout. So without further ado, please welcome the esteemed, beautiful, lovely Saira Sabzaali.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you so much, Jay. Wow, I can't even. Like, beautiful, esteemed, like all these big words. I feel great. I'm actually like, with COVID, we're all kind of sitting in our own spaces. And so I forget that there's humans out there. So it's so nice to see all you humans. And I know some people have their cameras on, some have them off, whatever works for you. What I will ask, though, is that do your best to just do this for now, because some of the things I'm saying are a bit like, it takes some thinking, and so I don't want you to be scrolling and on other tabs and checking your email. So do your best to be as present as you can, just as we're going through our session today. I'm going to make sure that I'm ready to share my screen. So let me just make sure that's all lined up. And thank you for having me. I wonder so people are telling me kind of where they're coming from in the chat, or where they live. I'd love to hear in the chat, what brings you to this conference, right? So what is it about this conference that made you think, okay, yeah, I want to sign up for that? Maybe just type in the chat, what is it? What is it that brought you here? I'd love to hear that as I'm kind of setting up and getting us going here, which I'm going to do right now. So what I'm talking about today is actually burnout. And that's an important topic because of the work that we're doing, right? The work that we're specifically doing as mental health advocates. One of the things I want to let you know, you might already know this because you might be Zoom confident. I'm like Zoom semi-confident. So if you don't know, you can make it I think speaker view or spotlight me or something. Yeah, I think I'm spotlighted. And you might be able to change the size of my box. So if you want to see me bigger and you don't just want to see the screen, you can just make me bigger, smaller. You already know that, but I just want to let you know. So what is burnout? Burnout is a state of chronic stress. Okay, so burnout is a state of chronic stress, and it leads to certain things. I just want to read actually some of the reasons people are here. Thank you for sharing that. So to learning more about mental health around the country, I'm an 18-year-old with a history of ADHD and anxiety, and mental health advocacy is my #1 passion. Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. What else? Who else do we have? Doing Jack talks, making graphics for mental health and connections to like-minded people is what brought me here. Great. So we have speakers in the crowd, learning more about mental health advocacy and intersectionality. I love it. Getting to hear about perspectives that I may have never thought about. Great. Learning more about mental health and connected with like-minded individuals to become the best advocate I can be. I want to learn more about the Canadian mental health system, and I'm also passionate about mental health. Lack of access to culturally appropriate mental health resources. Yes, I agree. And that's my life's work, is making sure that we're speaking people's languages. Their cultural values or spiritual beliefs are incorporated into therapy. Attending this conference to inform me, to bring awareness to my community and my line of work. Thank you for that. So, if you want to write something later, please do. I'd love to hear who's in the audience. And all the other answers that people posted. Absolutely. So let's go to burnout. So what is burnout? I wish I could ask for a show of hands. Is there a way to do that? I don't know. Can you raise your hand? I don't even know. But I'm sure if you were all in a room together, I'd say, who here, right? So who here has ever experienced burnout? People are raising their hands. Yeah. Okay. Lots of hands. Almost. Yep. There we go. At least like 30 people raising their hands. Yeah, exactly. So we know what it feels like. What we're going to do today is look at some of the science behind burnout and what we can do about it, right? Because it's one thing to have an experience of something. It's a different thing to actually know, okay, like, what do I do? So what is it? It's a state of chronic stress, and it leads to certain things. So physical and emotional exhaustion. So you're just tired. You just and sometimes you're really tired, but you can't sleep, which is so frustrating, right? So physical and emotional exhaustion, cynicism and detachment. So this is where you start feeling like, I don't really care. Like, I don't really care. I used to care about some things, but now I don't. And the world is a kind of a crappy place anyway. So what's the point of even trying? If you start having those types of thoughts, there's a high chance that you're experiencing burnout. This is a big one, especially for advocates in any field, but especially in mental health advocacy, feelings of ineffectiveness and lack of accomplishment. So no matter what I do, it's not going to work. You know, I've been doing this for years and still, look, nothing's changed. Those types of feelings that you're not having an impact, that can happen when you're experiencing burnout. And so if you think about this, the idea is that you're not already this person, right? So there are some people who are just kind of generally pessimistic, or they don't really feel like they have much impact, but I doubt that those are the people on this call, right? I'm guessing that the people who have come to this conference are people who really want to make a difference, people who are invested, right? Really invested in this work. And so when you're invested, see, there's a difference between burnout at work when you're getting paid for it versus burnout when you're just doing something from passion. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, that there is that difference. So when you're doing something from passion, it's like something that comes from inside of you. You're not really accountable to people in the same way that you are when you're doing a job, right? If you're getting paid for it, it's a little bit of a different experience than if you're just doing it because you love it. And when you love it and suddenly you feel ineffective, suddenly you feel like detached and cynical, then you can actually start questioning your whole existence. Like, why? What's my calling? What's my purpose if this isn't like hitting, if this isn't working for me anymore? Someone is saying in the chat, sometimes people don't even realize they're burning out. And so that's why this session is so important. Absolutely. So I'm going to show you how to know that you're burning out and what to do to support the people around you if they might be burning out. So let's move forward. So I want to talk to you for a minute about compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue. So here you'll see a picture of a person talking on the phone with a cup of coffee. I picked this picture because it's like we all do that, right? We all talk to our friends about what's going on. And for those of us who are drawn to this kind of work, many of us tend to be what we call empaths. So that means not only are you feeling for people, you're actually feeling with them. Okay, you're not just feeling for people, you're feeling with them. So when someone's sad, it's like you're sad. When somebody's angry, you can feel the anger. You can actually feel it inside of you. And so when you have that going on, other people's problems become so much heavier. And there's this concept called compassion fatigue. Oh yeah, Brian's just making a point. If you have any questions for me, pop them in the chat and the team's going to watch the questions and I'm going to answer them at the end. If I can get to them as I'm going, I will, but generally, like, we have a good chunk of time at the end to answer. So pandemic burnout fatigue is a very real feeling, and I really wish that more people are talking about this. Yeah, and here's why. Let me tell you why, my friends. Because we're not in a room together. When we're in a room together, our brains actually start syncing up and getting on the same brain wavelength. That's why they say you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's a real thing, because you're actually starting to change based on the people who are physically around you, right? And here, we're not actually physically around each other. So we're getting the feeling of being around people, but we're not getting the neurobiological messages that we need to feel that sense of social connection. So our tank isn't being filled the way it would if we were just all in a room together, which sucks, right? And so I think this year has really helped all of us see how important how important it is just to have people, not even people you necessarily know, like just going into a coffee shop and sitting there while people are milling around. I know for me, like public library, I love going to the library and sitting there and doing my work because there's people around. And not everybody wants to do that, but some of us do. And it's hard, right? It's tiring. Zoom gloom. I love that. Zoom gloom is a real thing. I love that you're interacting with me. So keep writing in the comments or in the chat as I'm going. Yeah, miss the library. So compassion fatigue, what is that? So compassion fatigue is the idea, like, I'm tired of caring. I'm just tired of caring, right? You get pooped, you get too tired. And Dr. Gabor Mate is, he's one of our like leading experts in addictions and recovery, and he's actually Canadian. And he taught, I went to one of his conferences and somebody asked a question about compassion fatigue, and he had the most incredible answer, and it stayed with me, and I want to pass it on to you. So the person said, what do we do about compassion fatigue? And you know what he said? He said, I don't think there's such a thing as compassion fatigue. And we're like, what? And he's like, you only get compassion fatigue if you're not being compassionate towards yourself. I was like, okay, what? Slow down. So I'm getting compassion fatigue because I'm not actually paying attention to what it is that I need to fill my tank. You see? That's why I'm tired. That's why I'm tired, because I'm not doing the self-care that I need to be there for other people. You see, I'm giving from my cup rather than giving from the overflow. So I just wanted to say that piece about compassion fatigue, because in this field of mental health, I mean, I'm a therapist. I sit and I hold people, and I'm an empath. So I sit and I hold people's problems and I feel their feelings, and it's hard work, right? And I could get tired of that. But when I remember to also look after myself, then I don't get tired. Right? Then I get re-energized and revitalized. And some of that is our rituals and routines that we have built into our day-to-day life, right? So do you have any sort of daily practice that you engage in that fills your tank? It can be anything. It could be going for a walk. It could be yoga. It could be sitting with your cup of coffee and looking out the window. It could be journaling. It could be meditation. There's so many different things that it could be, right? But making sure that you're doing something for yourself every day that's for you to fill your tank. So that's that piece that I wanted to share about compassion fatigue. I want to show you this model, and I developed this model with a colleague of mine specifically to talk about volunteering and doing social justice work, right? So it's not just about your job. This is about your calling in the social justice work that you're called to do. So what happens is when we're in this field, first we get inspired, right? So something happens and it makes us think, you know what? I want to make a difference. I want to give back. And it could be because something we've experienced ourselves. It could be something that a friend has gone through. Maybe you read a story or a book or whatever, and something inside of you gets you inspired. And likely that happened many, many years ago when you were a kid. Likely this inspiration is not just something that happened last night. It's something that you've always felt like, I want to help people, right? I want to make a difference. And so we get that inspiration. And once we get to a certain kind of level of emotional capacity, then we start getting busy. And I won't say age, because it's not actually about your age. It's about your emotional capacity, right? There are people who are very, very young, 8, 12, 15 years old, who are running companies because they've got that emotional capacity to be able to take those steps. And one of the things that we'll talk about is actually how do we regulate our emotions so that we have that extended emotional capacity. I feel like I wish I could talk to you for like 2 hours. I have so much to tell you, but I'll keep it short. So we go from inspiration to busyness, right? And busyness is where like things are happening and people are talking to you and people are wanting your input and people are reaching out to you and you're getting opportunities to speak and you're getting and you're getting busy and your time is like getting taken up by doing this thing that you really love doing. And then you feel this sense of fulfillment. You feel like, oh, I'm on the right path. This is what I'm meant to be doing, right? Now, most of us, when we feel fulfilled, then we do more. We add more to our plate, and not on purpose, just because we have that momentum, right? We're feeling good, we're busy, we're feeling fulfilled, and so we keep going. And then what happens is we get tired. And then we're on this slippery slope to too much, which is burnout. So I have a recommendation for all of us, for those of us who, especially because this is a passion for you, right? It's not something that you're forced into doing. It's something you want to do. It's something you were inspired to do. So when you're feeling fulfilled, at that moment, that's the time to choose again. So what do I mean by choose again? Well, when I was inspired, it's kind of like it came to me from somewhere, right? From an event or from a book or from my higher self or whatever. It came from somewhere. I was inspired. I was given this inspiration. With choosing, it's like, okay, I have this inspiration, I have this calling, I have this opportunity, but I need to choose it. And when I choose it, what I do is I increase my capacity. I go from being the lone wolf to being in the wolf pack, right? So when we're choosing, we're not just choosing this path, we're also choosing to be part of this community. You see? So you remember that it's not just you out there like on a mountain trying to figure stuff out. We're all in this together, and we can actually connect with each other and remember that you're part of this community. I want to do something right now with this, a little exercise, okay? So imagine we're all sitting in a room together. Imagine it's this big room, we're all sitting in this big circle, and everybody's there. And everyone's smiling and looking at each other, and we're like kind of getting to know each other. And we're all in this. Like each one of us is here for pretty much very similar reasons, because we care and we want to make a difference, and we're invested in wellness, right? Our own and other people's. And we're invested in stigma reduction for other people so people can seek the help that they want or that they need. So when you remember that you're part of this circle, and you might even want to close your eyes or leave them open, or, it helps if you kind of look down, don't look at the screen for a second. Imagine that in this circle, there's kind of this golden thread of light or intention that's coming out of your heart. It's like your passion is just coming out of your heart in this golden light, and it's connecting to someone on the other side of the circle. And it's connecting to someone else and someone else. And suddenly there's these golden strands that are connecting to each and every person in the circle. And then they have these golden strands connecting to you. And there's this web, you see? So I think of that as the safety net, right? This is our kind of emotional safety net, psychological safety net. So when we're feeling alone in this work and we need to choose again, we remember this web, that we're part of something much bigger than just our own plans. There's a whole community of people out here. So that's what I mean when I say choose again, because only then can we actually move into leadership, right? You can't be a leader when you're tired. You can't be a leader when you feel like it's too much. It's when you choose again, you expand your capacity, you rejoin the community, and remember that it's not all on you. That's when you get to step into leadership. So I want to teach you something, a little neuroscience, okay? So you'll see this little guy, he's like, like this little picture. I think of him as the captain. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can show you this. And I'd like you to do this with me. It's a little neuroscience 101, okay? So take your two fingers and tap here in the middle of your head. And say out loud, this is my captain. Say it with me, this is my captain. And one more time, this is my captain. Now the side here, this is my first mate. Say it out loud. This is my first mate. I know you feel weird saying it out loud. Just say it out loud. This is my first mate. And here at the back, right under that bump in the back of your head, say, this is the sheriff. This is the sheriff. This is the sheriff. So what does that mean? These are different parts of the brain that control different things. So the captain, also known as the prefrontal cortex for those who are biology people, the captain is the part of us that looks at the big picture, right? It can see the horizon, it can see the sunrise, it can see problems that are way out there and solve them before they get too close. This is the captain. It's our executive functioning. The first mate is the limbic system, or the emotional part of the brain. And that part of the brain is just scanning for danger. That's its job. Just look for danger, look for danger, look for danger. When the danger comes, that part of the brain, the first mate, has to make a decision. Do I send that information to the captain, or do I send it to the sheriff? Now, the sheriff's job is just to keep you alive. So that's where you hear things like fight, flight, or freeze, right? The activation of fight or flight, that is the sheriff. So here's the problem. We were designed to have our fight or flight activated maybe once a week or so. That's how often the tiger would come and like we'd have to run away from the tiger, about once a week or once every 2 weeks. The way that we live now, everything's a tiger. Somebody's text message could be a tiger, right? Somebody sends an emoji and suddenly it's a tiger in your mind. Somebody's tone of voice could be a tiger, right? Thinking about something that's not even here could be a tiger. And so what happens when we get these tigers is that our body is flooded with all of these stress hormones. The sheriff takes over and floods our body with stress hormones. We go into fight or flight, and now we're saying things that we wish we never said. We're acting in ways that we know is unreasonable, right? We're doing those things because who's in charge? The sheriff. And so what we need to do, what we all need to learn to do, is teach ourselves to send messages to the captain. Now, how do you do that? There's some techniques, and we're going to talk about some of them, and I'll tell you one right now. An easy one is deep breathing. And I know it sounds so cliche, but I'll explain why it works. Okay, so let's practice it first and then I'll explain why it works. So what we're gonna do is keep your belly kind of soft. Maybe you want to put your hands on your belly so you can feel it, and you're gonna breathe in through your nose, hold, and then out through your mouth, as if you're blowing out a candle. So in through your nose, hold, and then out through your mouth. One more time, in through your nose, hold, and out through your mouth. And type in the chat how you feel right now after doing those 3 breaths. How does it feel in your body? Relaxed, calm, grounded, calm, relieved, at ease, more relaxed, happy, calmer, calm. Yeah, 3 deep breaths, that's all we did. Why does it work? Well, here's how it works. When there's a tiger, safe, good one. When there's a tiger, our body changes in the way that it responds. So there's a physiological change when there's a tiger, right? Even if that tiger is just a tone of voice or our own thought. One of the physiological changes is we start breathing more shallow. And so when we breathe deeply, you're actually tricking your brain. And you're telling your brain, look, there's no tiger here, because if there was a tiger here, I couldn't be breathing so deeply. And suddenly the captain's back in charge. So simple, right? So I know it's like, oh, just breathe, but there's a thing. It's a real thing. It actually changes. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system. It calms down your body. It actually works. So that's a simple way to get from sheriff to captain. And for kids, so if you have little kids in your life, like younger siblings, little brothers and sisters, whoever, one trick for them is I use the candle trick. So I say, blow out the candles, and I put up 10 fingers like this, and I get them to, and then one goes down, and another one goes down. And that's a way to trick them into doing some deep breathing if they're like throwing tantrums or they're overwhelmed or whatever. Someone is saying in the chat, as a psych major, this has been one of the best tools for coping with my anxiety. I love tangible information. And when my therapist made me think about the neurobiology of panic attacks, it was a game changer. Absolutely, right? Because it's your brain, and you can actually influence your brain. You can change your brain, my friends. We never knew that, but now we know this thing, neuroplasticity. You can actually change not only the pathways in your brain, but you can create more brain cells. Did you know that? Neurogenesis. You can create more brain cells. Do you want to know how? Want to know how to create more brain cells? Here we go. Meditation. That's how you do it. That's how you create more brain cells. It's the only way that we found so far. People who meditate regularly create new brain cells regularly. But then you can't just meditate and go be mean to people. Because then you'll create these brain cells and you'll send them all to the sheriff. That's not what we want. You have to actually live that ethical life, right? Live according to your values and principles as well. So let's go back. So now you know who the captain is, and now you know who's in charge. So that's something you can ask yourself when you're stressed, when you're burnt out. Who's in charge right now? And you can even tap just to remind yourself, like, come on, captain, come on back. Come on, captain, take your breaths. Another way to get the captain back on board is get outside. Get outside, look at the trees, look at the grass, look at the water. Again, it reminds you, like, look, there's no tiger. I'm okay. It's okay. I want to talk to you about this idea of caring. I have a different kind of came up with this different model of caring. Caring often feels like something we do solo, right? Like, oh, I care about my family, or I care about this person. You're like alone in this. And I picked this picture. I know it's not the best like quality, but I picked this picture on purpose. And the reason I picked this picture is this. Our problems are like beached whales. Right? And in order to help a beached whale, you can't do that alone. You have to be part of a team, and you have to have the right gear, right? People have their wetsuits on. People are working as a team. They're going together on purpose. Yeah, good one. People are working as a team, right? So when we think about caring for others, what if this was the image that came to mind rather than what we usually see, which is that single hand reaching out to the single hand, right? That's usually what we see, a hand. What if we saw it this way? All of us are working together to support. And here's the way that I think we could maybe care in a little bit more of an effective way that's sustainable and long-lasting and effective. So the first thing is connection. We have to connect. We have to connect. We have to connect. If you're dissociated, you're not caring about yourself. You're not caring about anybody else. Now, dissociation is a useful tool when we're children and we're trying to get away from trauma. Then we check out, and that's a good thing. But now that we're adults or young adults, we have to learn to connect. We connect with ourselves, we connect with the other, and we connect with the all that is, whatever that means to you. Connect with the self, connect with the other, and connect with all that is, creation. So that's the first step, is connection. And have you ever had this happen to you where you're talking to someone and they're not even there? They're like checked out somewhere. You can feel that, right? And it feels like unfair, almost like you're bearing your heart to someone, they're not even there. So connection to yourself is the first thing. And then being able to meaningfully connect with another, also with boundaries, right? Boundaries are important. Knowing where you end and I begin, that's important. Connection's the first thing. Second is authenticity. Be real, be real, be real, be real, be real. I don't have to tell you this. You already know this because you're at this conference, right? So you know about being real. If I'm having a tired day, I'm going to say that when people ask me how I'm doing. And I'm not going to necessarily go into the whole story of it, but I'm going to say, yeah, like it's been a bit of a rough day for me, rather than like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Like, be real, be yourself and be real. Don't try to be someone else. Like somebody said to me, you have to be your best version of yourself, not somebody else's idea of who you should be, right? So authenticity is my idea of the best version of myself, not my mom's, not my sister's, not my school's, my idea of the best version of myself. The third is responsiveness. Now, this is super important when it comes to burnout. Burnout happens when we feel responsible. Okay, you feel responsible for people. You feel like, so I wake up in the morning and I'm responsible for, getting somewhere on time, and then I'm responsible for doing my work, my homework, and then I'm responsible for my younger sibling. I'm responsible for and it's just, and then if I have a mental illness on top of it, God help me, now I'm responsible for my own well-being, right? It's like, oh, this heaviness, this overwhelm. Responsiveness is different. Responsiveness is more like a dance, right? So something comes, so I'll talk about my own life, okay? So wake up in the morning, my daughter's in my bed, and I'm going to respond to that. And I'm going to be like, okay, there she is. And then I wake up and I get ready. I'm just going to move to the next thing. And then somebody wants breakfast, and I get that. And then a client reaches out and I connect there. And then I have a need for lunch, and then I make sure I take care of that. And then, so it's responsiveness is being really present in this moment and doing what needs to be done in this moment. Responsibility messes with your head, because now you have this huge list of things you have to do, and you feel like you have no time and no bandwidth. Whereas responsiveness just requires for you to show up right now and be here. That's it. And then respond to whatever's happening around you. So responsiveness versus responsibility. And finally, excellence. What if we were to treat each other with excellence? What if we were to treat ourselves with excellence, caring for ourselves and others at that level? Right? I think it would change the game. So that's my thoughts about how to care in a different way. I wanted to share with you this. So the image on the left is from TED. Oh, lots of things. Okay, let me just look at the chat for a second. I've had therapists who were completely dissociated. Oh my gosh, therapists. Come on, therapists. From the discussion we were having, being engaged in the conversation is so important. Absolutely, especially when it's your mental health provider. Like, come on, stay with me, people. Stay with me. One thing I find a struggle is when connecting with people who don't pick up on the social cues and how to set boundaries about not being able to care for someone at a given time, and show them that it doesn't mean I don't care at all. Some of my friends come to me all the time, but then when I try to set boundaries or don't always reply, they stop talking to me for a few weeks. Yeah, we have to teach people how to treat us, right? And there's some people who won't like it that you set boundaries. That'll happen because they like you to always be available to them, because they're about taking from you, not about a reciprocal relationship. And perhaps those people are better off being someone else's friends. That's the unfortunate truth, right? There's going to be people who, when it's not all about them, they don't want to be there anymore. And that's okay. Those people might even be your family members. That's okay. Boundaries, because if you don't set boundaries, this is a burnout profession. Getting involved with anything to do with mental health, if you don't know how to set boundaries, you are going to burn yourself out within a year, right? Forget 10 years or 25 years. 1 year, you'll be done. So look after yourself, and yeah, maybe they don't talk to you. And maybe that's a blessing because you don't have to listen to their problems for a couple of weeks. Just saying. I feel responsible when I feel burnt out when I feel responsible for ending stigma. Yeah, I would say let's reduce stigma. Ending, who knows? Let's try to just reduce it. Bring awareness to it, reduce it. Responsibility can add stress, but responsiveness facilitates growth and healthy living. Love it. Treat yourself the way you treat others. Yeah. So the left diagram, yes, that is a Jack diagram, Jack Talks diagram. The right one is from the Mental Health Commission of Canada. And so I put them side by side because I think there's some really important, they're basically the same, it's just tipped sideways if you look at it, right? So it's like tipped this way. So like healthy, and then words are a little bit different, but it's this, the reason I put up the Mental Health Commission one is I want you to see that there's things you can do and ways you can know where you are on the continuum. So whether you have a mental illness or not, all of us have mental health, right? And you already know this. Just like we have physical health, we all have mental health. Sometimes we're feeling more healthy, sometimes we're in crisis. That's the basics, and you know that. So when we're in the healthy zone, and I call it the green zone, that's when we're kind of normally functioning or optimally functioning. Normal moods go up and down. We're calm. We're able to take things in stride. The captain's leading, right? We have a sense of humor. We feel in control. We're sleeping properly. We're physically well. We have these good energy levels. We're active physically, socially. We don't really engage in what would you call them? Sabotage. I call them sabotage behaviors. So that's what it looks like when we're healthy. And so there's some good questions here. So I'm hoping the team is capturing these because then I can answer those in the Q&A. You can just Google it. Like this is all over the internet. Mental health continuum, look it up, you'll find it. It's everywhere. And it's by the Mental Health Commission of Canada. So, okay, so what do you do when you're in that space of healthy? Well, you just, you focus on the task at hand, you break problems into chunks, you know what your support systems are, you nurture those support systems, and you maintain your healthy lifestyle. Great, so that's great. And we know what to do when we're feeling good. Now let's move into when we're not feeling so good. So when we're starting to get into that reacting or injured zone, now we're starting to become irritable, become nervous, we're having some trouble sleeping. There's this displaced sarcasm. That's one of the attitude things. We're procrastinating, we're forgetting. Maybe we're having muscle tension or headaches, low energy. So when we're in the yellow, see, most of us, many of us wait till we're in red until we seek support. My suggestion to you is to let's look out for each other. So watch your family, your friends, your circle, and start noticing where people are on the continuum, because if the earlier they get help, the better, right? Green and yellow, social support and self-care is all you need. But once you start moving from stress to struggling, right, or reacting to injured, now we're needing some professional care. So this is where now you're really angry all the time, you're anxious, you kind of have this negative attitude. Either you're becoming a workaholic or you're totally disengaging from the work that you have to do. You can't concentrate, you can't sleep, can't eat. That's when we need to reach out for help. And because ill is when we're in crisis. And so I put this up here to remind us not to wait until we're in crisis to ask for help, right? Even in the yellow, once you get to yellow, that's when we can make those small adjustments in our own day-to-day to get us back to the, and you're not gonna live in the green, obviously, every single day, right? Obviously not. But you can watch for yourself and most importantly for the people around you. That this Jack conference, right? It was around like, let's let all the friends and family know what to look for if somebody's struggling. That's what Jack's dad, that's what it was all about, right? Let's teach people what to look for and end the stigma so that people can get the help that they need. And so if you're a friend to someone else, you can watch out and say, hey, this person's kind of going from yellow to orange, because we don't always know it when it's happening to us, but we can see it in the people around us. And so I want to end my talk by saying this: you are not alone, even when it feels that way. And I have a golden king, because it's like remembering your greatness, right? And remembering that you also have a whole team behind you. You're not the only one that's on this, the only one that's trying to do it. That's how we get burnt out, is we think it's all on us, we have to do it, and there's no way out. So I could, like I said, I could talk for another 2 hours, but that's the part that I wanted to impart to you today. And now might be a good time to take some of the questions that came up.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Saira. Everyone give a round of applause. Thank you so much. And also, I just want to take a deep breath in from our nose and out from our mouth, quickly just to recap. So breathe in and breathe out. Because I know, Dr. Saira, you spilled a lot of tea there. You got a lot in there, huh?
Like everything, let them know everything right now, all of it.
We love.
Hopefully it wasn't too much, but hopefully it was just the right amount for
I
everyone.
think it was the perfect amount. I got a lot from that. I tried jotting down as much notes as I could because I was just so, oh my gosh, I was just so astonished for everything you said. And so we're gonna go pull from the session Q&A. I got one question from Julia Bex. So the question was, what is something that we can be doing during this pandemic to continue looking after our mental health and while also advocating for others? So I'm gonna post it on the chat so that we can all see it. Give me one moment here. Beep up, boop up.
So what is something that what we can be doing during this pandemic specifically to continue? Now, here's a really easy one. Get outside. Get outside. And it doesn't take any money. Doesn't really even take that much time. Just get outside, get some fresh air. And one of the ways to help others is to go for walks. Like I know maybe socially distanced or whatever, however you have to do it. I know one of my girlfriends and I, we go on like FaceTime walks. Like she's in her neighborhood walking and I'm in my neighborhood walking. We're on FaceTime together, right? So getting outside is one of the best things we can do for our mental health right now, because we're all inside and we're not designed for this. Human beings are not designed to be indoors. For thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, we've been outside. That's why camping feels so good, people, because we're outside, right? So get outside. Simple answer.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that is so true. Honestly, when I go outside, take a breath of fresh air, I'm just like, wow, God is good. Everything's good. Everything's amazing. It's just like nice to just have that, to be starting into that. And also, I believe we have a question here that someone wants to pass the mic on to. So I believe it's Teresa. Hi, Teresa. You can go ahead. We're going to unmute you here. Give us a moment. But perfect. Teresa.
All right. Hi, Dr. Saira. Thank you so much for speaking today. I just want to say I really appreciate it, especially as someone who is in healthcare as well. I feel like this might overlap with what you talked about with responsibility versus responsiveness. But what thoughts do you have, I guess, on managing like the guilt that comes with being someone in healthcare and always feeling like, you have the guilt that you're not doing enough, or feeling like other people need you more than you need yourself? So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Teresa. And again, for most of us who are empaths, guilt is the hidden dagger in being an empath, right? So one of the things that you can maybe as a visual tell yourself is this. So imagine a teacup and a saucer, right? So like the saucer and the cup. Our job is to make sure our cup is overflowing and then give from the saucer. If you give from the cup, you're not your best self anyway. Right? So reminding yourself that by looking after me, I'm actually better at my job and better for my family when I'm okay. So it's actually a self-correction that we have to do to say, wait a minute, guilt is not a helpful emotion here, because you should feel guilty when you've done something wrong, right? We feel guilt because we're social mammals. And when we harm someone else, we should feel bad because that's what keeps the social cohesion. So there's a place for guilt. But when you're serving and giving, and the guilt is up, then that's a dissonance. That shouldn't be happening. That's a trick of the ego telling you like, oh, you're bad, you're wrong, you're bad, you're wrong. Here's one other thing I'll give you, Teresa, as a tool. So it's from transactional analysis in therapy. And the idea is called ego states. So basically there's 3 people who live inside of you. There's a lot more than that, but 3 main ones. The needy child, the critical parent, and the compassionate adult. The needy child, the critical parent, and the compassionate adult. So the guilt is the critical parent talking to you, right? And so what we do is we say, wait a minute, I've internalized this critical parent. That voice isn't helping me. Let me go to the compassionate adult. And somebody put it in the chat earlier, talk to yourself as if you were your best friend talking to you. What would your best friend say to you right now, right? And they probably say, what are you talking about? You're doing great. So we have to do that self-talk to correct those thinking patterns inside of us. Great question. Thanks, Teresa.
Thanks, Teresa. All right, so there's a lot of questions flowing in, so I'm going to make sure I reach to everyone. So our next question comes from Riley Wells from the session Q&A, and the question was, what are some recommendations / considerations you have for healthy usage of social media? And I'll put that in the chat. Give me one moment.
Yes, good one. Good question. Social media. I think this is like the golden age of social media right now, because you can use it to inspire people. You can use it to be authentic. So I would say, think about what's happening when you're scrolling. If you're finished engaging in social media and you feel depleted, then that wasn't the best use of your time. If you're engaging in social media and you feel inspired and like it's like one thing leads to another thing, now you want to read this book, now you want to listen to this podcast, well, then that's great. So it's about how you feel. It's not about use it or don't use it. It's how do you feel as you're using it? And what is your intention? Is your intention to just numb out? Is that why you're scrolling? Or is your intention to be inspired? Is your intention to check in on your friends? So what is your intention? How do you feel when you're using it? And then what are you posting, right? Could you start posting things that inspire other people and aren't just about your own personal life, but about something bigger, right? About these really meaningful concepts that mean something to you. Post about that. I don't care what you had for breakfast. Well, sometimes I care what you had for breakfast, but you know what I mean? Like it's about, we can use social media to actually create huge and really bonded communities right now. So I wouldn't say get off it, but I would say think about how you're using it and why you're using it in that particular way.
What an amazing response. I think you truly put it really well there, of how, like, like you're in control of your own media. Like you can mute your stuff. You can definitely put yourself in a comfortable position for you to learn and grow with your social media. And that is truly amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one. This is from the chat from, I'm sorry if I say your name wrong, but Papine Josephine, is, what if we are afraid of being vulnerable and we are scared of being disappointed or not having our needs heard by others? I'll put that in the chat in just a second.
That's a good one. So for people who are really good at giving, we're often really bad at receiving. We're good at helping others, but we have a hard time asking for help. And one of my teachers said this to me, and it blew my mind. But back in my master's program, she said this. She said, when you give to someone else, you know how good that feels, right? Put your hand up if you know how good that feels, giving to someone else. Put your hand up. Yeah, good. See you. Look at all those hands. Now, here's the thing. When you do not let someone else give to you, you are robbing them of that feeling. You are robbing them of that good feeling when you do not ask for anything. And when you ask for something and it's too late, you're already like drowning, and now you ask, well, now there's this huge expectation that they better say yes, right? So what we want to learn to do, for those of us who have a hard time asking, ask for little things that don't really matter. Use that to practice. Just little things that don't really matter. Can I have a sip of your coffee? We can't even do that anymore with COVID. I don't even know what you could ask for. But like those little things, the little things that don't matter, practice asking. And remember that when you're vulnerable, and Brene Brown has some great talks on this. She's got books all over this, right, around vulnerability. Vulnerability is actually what bonds us to people. So if we're not being vulnerable, we're actually putting up a wall between us and other people, right? If I've always got it all together, well, then you can't really get to me, right? Because I'm like sitting on this pedestal somewhere. So vulnerability actually bonds us to people.
I
know it's hard, but it's necessary to let that wall down.
It's like Brené Brown puts it perfectly, like vulnerability is power, and we speak from our scars and not our wounds. It is just beyond
So
anything
good.
to think of, right? Oh my gosh, truly relate. So we got our next question here from Herbert Fong. So what are some recommendations for finding a therapist that is right for you? And there's another one here. Would it be more helpful to find one that aligns with your interests or goals more? And I put it right in the chat. Yeah.
Okay. So I've been doing this for a really long time, and I'll tell you, the best way to find a therapist is a gut feeling. So you can do your research. Of course, you're going to do your research, right? About who has kind of the skill set that you need, or if they specialize in depression, you have depression. So then you'll narrow it down to maybe, I would say narrow it down to 3. and interview them, talk to them, and notice who feels right for you. Just leave it at that, because only 10% of our processing is conscious processing, right? Right now, you're breathing and your heart is pumping and you're not even thinking about it until I just said it right now, right? You're blinking. Did you notice that? No, that's all unconscious processing. And so the unconscious mind is the gut, that gut feeling that you get, like, oh, this person I could talk to. Trust that. Trust that. When you connect with the person and you feel like, this is someone who I feel like they would get me, trust that. Absolutely. The other way that you can do it, so one of the things I do is I have a women's group, for example, and that's a drop-in group. So people can come to the group, drop in, check it out, check me out, and then decide if they want to work with me one-on-one, right? So see if the therapist that you're considering has something like that, where you can kind of, like, maybe they have some videos, or maybe they have a group, or maybe they have some blog posts. So you can get a sense of, does this person feel like they fit with me? It's not as much about your goals as much as it's almost like a vibe, right? It's not about their clinical expertise. It's about, do they feel like someone you can talk to? Because we know that 30% of the changes that we see in clients is only because of the relationship that they have with their therapist. 30%, 1/3 of all the changes are going to be because of your relationship with your client. That's a lot, right? So you want to make sure that you're connected to your therapist. That would be the easiest one.
Nice. Thank you so much, Saira. We appreciate that. We got one more question here. Sorry, we were just running out of time slowly. So we're going to go to Alexandra Radu's question. How do you deal with self-stigma? Do you have any tips for that?
A good one. So I don't know if I don't think we mentioned it in our opening, but I live with clinical depression myself. And about 3 years ago, I went on medication, and there was a huge stigma that came up within myself, because I thought, like, I should be able to, like, I should know, I shouldn't need the meds. That was the bottom line. Like, I don't want to need the meds. And there's a lot of self-stigma. Like, I should be able to think my way out of this. I should be able to, what's wrong with me? And I know better. And da-da. But the thing about mental illness is that there's chemicals involved, right? In your brain, there's electrical impulses, which you can work on with therapy and reprogramming and doing certain actions. But then there's a chemical element as well. And so knowing that some things you can't think your way out of everything, right? So reminding yourself about that when the stigma is coming up is that it's not like you chose this, right? Nobody chooses to be unwell. There are things you can do to maintain wellness as best as you can, but there will be times when you're in the dark night of the soul and you're just there, right? And one of the things I've learned in a really profound way is that I cannot walk anyone else through the darkness if I have not walked it myself. And so when you're in it, when you're in the valley, know that you're building your muscles. You're building your muscles of how to see in the dark, because one day you'll be helping other people walk through that. And it might be professionally, it might just be in your personal life, but remember that there's even some reason even for this pain. If you can think of it that way, if you can frame it that way, then it's not a waste. That's what I would say to that.
Love. Thank you so much, Saira, for the input.